All right, so what is the whole point of what we're about to record for who knows how long and whether we'll actually finish this whole project? Well, lots of people remember Final Fantasy Tactics and the remake remaster was recently announced, and people remember that as their introduction to this tactics, strategy, simulation RPG, whatever you want to call it, genre. I remember for me it was Tactics Ogre, uh, and I we rented it on the PlayStation. I found an emulated, translated version of it because I wasn't able to find it. And Tactics Ogre and the March of the Black Queen. I loved the Ogre Battle series, particularly Tactics Ogre. I can't tell you how many times I played it growing up, going through all three routes, whether it was that translated SNES ROM, the PlayStation 1 version. I eventually managed to hunt down a physical copy. It was at a random outlet store while I was on vacation with my family. Uh, every other time I'd found it, it was like a $60 to $80 game. They had it there for like $15 because they didn't know what they had. Um, I still have my Person of Lordly Caliber cartridge, carefully protected with my save. There's a memory card somewhere with at least the three main playthroughs for each route. And on some old hard drive, I have two different save states for March of the Black Queen, with the Tristan abdication ending, and one where we accidentally kind of destroyed the world. Got a Night of Lotus save somewhere. The point is, I love this series, and I would talk people's ears off about it. I got a lot of people to play different variants through the years. A friend made that shield you see on this picture for me because that's it's influenced how I write stories, tell stories, make adventures, tabletop encounters. This grid-based, squad-based gameplay is probably my favorite genre. Whether we get super crunch-heavy stuff with turn-based like Wrath of the Righteous, or more goofy stuff like Chroma Squad, I just love building teams and testing things out. Um, so I've played the PSP version through once, same with Reborn. I've heard about One Vision, but I've never played it. So starting today, I'm going to play through all four versions so we can see the differences in how they play. My goal is to bounce between the playthroughs in timeline order. So we'll be doing the PS1 version, then PSP, then One Vision, then Reborn. I'm going to go one section of the story at a time just to make it easier to compare so we don't do all of a chapter, then go and do all of a chapter. It'll be little chunks. So to start with, we're gonna be going up to the return from dealing with Nibith the first time. Um, I'm gonna try and record almost everything for the longer dungeons in the more recent versions in Palace of the Dead. There we'll probably do that. Um, we'll start neutral route just because I like getting that out of the way first because it's the suckiest route to do. So some general rules in each playthrough for each of the versions. We're gonna have our unique and semi-unique characters built differently, just for variety's sake. Um, I'll have a link to a Google Doc that may or may not stay up to date. That sort of roughly says how we're using people somewhere in the description. But at the very start, we're also going to fire all of the nobodies it gives us to hire specific ones. We'll name them the same for each playthrough, and their goal is to try and fill the same role, but it may not necessarily be the same class because of the differences in the versions. After we get to the end of the neutral route, obviously the PS1 version doesn't have a world card, so it'll just be a new save, and then uh, Lord will rewind back to get Kachua or the Lord class in the other ones, whichever one we don't end up not getting the first time. Go all the way back to the beginning, start the law route, go back all the way to the beginning when we're done that, start chaos, and at that point we say goodbye to the PS1 version and we look at how the other ones play in post game. There is going to be a lot of talk about the story as we go through. If I'm going to assume if you're following this, you don't care about spoilers. So we're going to talk over some of the game. It's also going to be fairly silent as the gameplay goes for a lot of the time. One of the things I do remember is Tactics Ogre is an adult story at a time when games are for kids was a pretty big concept, and very few games were deviating from that. I remember the story as well as the experience of playing through the story as a kid really well. I remember being stuck on Leonard forever. I remember being really upset that we just couldn't save Vice because Law Route was the last route I did as a kid because I was a goody two shoes obviously who wasn't as a kid. My first time through on the Chaos route, we managed to save Kachua, and I was shocked that there were playthroughs where you couldn't. It had never occurred to me that the game would just take her away from you like that. And yeah, we're gonna talk about things as we go. There's not gonna be much structure after this first bit here. One thing I will note right now is that the Law Route gets overly saturated in everything after the PS1 version, and even here you get Vice in the Law Route, so the Law Route definitely is favored, which always felt weird to me that Ravnus got put on the Law Route instead of going into neutral to fill in for losing Gildus. But there we go. Here are my brief expectations from each version. For the PlayStation 1 version, I expect I'm still going to like the simplicity of it. It's going to be a lot more direct. It's going to feel snappier. There's going to be less customization. But I think that's going to make it a lot of a smoother to play through experience. And there's also going to be, with customization comes bloat. And I think not having that is going to make the experience more interesting. PSP, the base version, I think is going to have the most bloat. There's skill grinding, level grinding. I think it's going to be the worst experience solely because One Vision exists, which is a user-created mod made by Rakes, R-A-I-C-S. It's been like a 9 or 10 year labor of love, and this is going to be my first time going through it. I think this is going to be our deepest experience because there's going to be a lot of features I've never seen before. And then Reborn recently, I went back to my old save, cleared Palace of the Dead, and that's sort of what inspired this. I think Reborn is going to be this nice middle ground between the two, where it's going to be a little bit simpler than the PSP version, and with a few noticeable issues there. I really liked the idea of what the random card spawns were trying to do. The idea is that you build up momentum by picking them up until you reach a tipping point where you can close out the fight. But the implementation doesn't always work that way for me, especially with boss fights where they start with a bunch of cards, and so it's a sort of a chaotic scramble to do things. But with that in mind, here's whenever we get to the end of this series, which who knows how long that'll be, here's my estimate. I'm going to really like One Vision from what I've read, and then I think mattering on how strong the nostalgia goggles turned out to be, I think the real question is whether I like the PS1 version more than Reborn gameplay-wise. Reborn's story is obviously a better presentation, and there's a lot more quality of life stuff there, but the speed of play in the PlayStation 1 version I think is going to make me have a better experience. But we'll also figure out what sort of cheese we like best. Is it going to be orbs with the lightest weapons possible for insane, dodge and parry rates? Harbram petrifying everyone as a sword master, or is it going to be more of the engaging buff and debuff elemental breach and fear stacking? We'll find out, and the other fun thing, we'll be watching Archer slowly slide down the power scale through each version. So we're going to watch as Alozer goes to Arthiel, and, don't worry, in our hearts, she's always going to be a loser to us. Anyway, I'm going to check back when it's time for Denim to start recruiting his people in the PlayStation 1 version. And let me see if I set this up right. I did. All right. So let's go ahead and hop on over here. And there's going to be a brief moment here because I'm going to actually... I want to make sure the sound came through all right. So I'm going to edit this opening into the gameplay version, and we'll see. So there we go. I'll see you. You will hopefully not notice anything as this seamlessly streams into the other. So all right, we'll be back.